Oh, my dear friend has just flown in. Look, there they are, the bright tracers. It's truly happening. And I can see the night vision scopes.
Urgent! A night of vengeance for Russia. The AFU struck on all fronts. Grozny City is under attack. The Kadyrovites' fortress has been blown up. The offices of the top brass are under a barrage of attacks. A sea of fire has spread across the country. The AFU broke deep into the heart of Russia, and Russians were overwhelmed by panic. The GUA blew up Russian aircraft, and the launch site for Shaheds is gone. Bloody December has begun. More on all of this coming up. Watch until the end. Ukraine welcomes you today. Renata Slanov here with the latest events. It happened. A night of vengeance for Russians. The AFU covered the enemy with hellfire. Our forces struck the occupiers in Crimea. Thus, fighters from the special GUR unit Ghosts hit a Russian MiG-29 fighter jet at the Chechnya military airfield. That same night, the Sirtish airfield radar complex, located near temporarily occupied Simferopol, was also struck. According to intelligence, Ukrainian special units continue to carry out targeted operations to weaken the Russian air defense system in Crimea. In particular, radar stations, anti-aircraft complexes, and now even the occupiers' aircraft are regularly being put out of action. And that's not all. Information has appeared online. While the Russians were preparing another salvo of Shaheds at Milarovo in the Rostov region, Ukrainian drones struck directly at the UAV launch installations. Explosions, destroyed equipment. The response came when it was least expected. It seems the Ukrainian Armed Forces' revenge was a resounding success, and Russia is being torn apart by strikes. A drone attacked the capital of Chechnya, the city of Grozny. It hit a high-rise building directly. The Kadyrovites' stronghold in Grozny City was attacked, where the offices of the Chechen Security Council and other government institutions are located, under a barrage of revenge. Monitoring channels report that the UAV hitting the high-rise building may have been the result of electronic warfare and air defense systems at work. Not far from the Grozny City complex is the building of the Chechen FSB, which could also have been a target of the attack. A night of hellish thunder in Russia. Russians are panicking online, writing about wailing sirens and a whole series of powerful explosions in the Syzran area of the Samara region. It is reported that the first strike shattered the silence around 2 in the morning, after which the city was hit by a salvo series. 5 to 7 explosions in a row, and then gunfire broke out.
Looks like they got hit again.
All of this looks very much like frantic attempts by air defense to shoot down drones that were breaking deep into Russia. Meanwhile, the locals are practically drowning in panic.
Look, you can see the smoke pretending it's nothing. Syzran, I came here too.
Oh, a siren.
I'm so tired and the siren just exploded. And I just, you tell me like I say, I'll check the siren now, take a look. And then the siren starts blaring here.
The official agencies, as always, are silent, but preliminary data is already making things clear. Once again, a strategically important facility belonging to Rosneft was hit. The very one the Russians are trying to guard especially carefully, but the Ukrainian Armed Forces have found a way to it again. There's hysteria in the Russian public channels. They're sounding the alarm about a drone attack near the Emryk commercial seaport. Russian sources are widely reporting damage and significant fire outbreaks. They're reporting destruction and huge fires that broke out in just a matter of minutes.
I told you, it's the port. We have a port here. A friend arrived. This is Levtanka.
Levtanka. Later reports indicated that the strike hit directly below a fuel tank, turning the area into a sea of fire. Astra analysts have already stated that it is burning itself. The gas terminal is one of the key facilities in the region. The Temryk port is a strategic point for the transshipment of liquefied gas and petroleum products, but today it became a target pierced right through. Russians are in shock, and the consequences of this attack are only beginning to unfold. A thunderous blast in southern Russia. Drones attacked strategic facilities in the Stavropol region. The Novonomiska Zot plant was hit again. A massive fire broke out at the giant facility, which is the heart of Russia's military-industrial complex. While the governor weekly repeated claims about a drone attack, open-source analysts had already uncovered the truth. It was the plant producing critically important components for explosives and ammunition that became the target of the strike. And all this happened 570 kilometers from the front line. Ukrainian drones are reaching their targets and hitting them while Putin's defenses have cracked once again. Every year, more than 1 million tons of ammonia and ammonium nitrate are produced here, which the Russians use in explosives and shells for artillery. Other substances have dual purposes and are often used in the production of ammunition for grenade launchers as well as explosive and rocket charges. In addition, the water-soluble fertilizers that began to be produced here last year are being adapted for the military needs of the Russian army.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
A bloody December has begun in Russia. The string of disasters is not ending. Key facilities that the Kremlin considered untouchable are erupting in fiery explosions. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are striking where the Russians least expect it. Our forces are burning deep into the Russian rear. Watch for all the details.
Russia is in flames and darkness. There's a blackout in the Moscow region and dozens of residential buildings have been left without power.
There the car has no lights, something is lit in one window, but here there isn't a single one. In
complete darkness, Russians are sitting not for the first time. A month ago, there was a large-scale power outage in the Moscow region. Well, the good drones did a great job, although the occupation authorities, of course, deny it.
Essentially, this is a phased disconnection of Moscow from the power supply. This won't happen today or tomorrow or even in a week. Perhaps, unfortunately, not even by New Year's. But considering that Ukraine is scaling up its raids across the territory of the Russian Federation, just look at how many Ukrainian drones are now flying into Russia. There was nothing like this in 2022 or 2023, and not in 2024 either. And
this is already a good morning in Krasnodar Krai. Local residents are reporting explosions in Tuapse. The Ilsky oil refinery and one of the local ports may have been hit.
oh, it blinked. I
saw it. And then, during the night, drones successfully set the oil depot in the Oriel region completely on fire.
Now even the chemicals are burning. I really don't know what that is. Oh, just like...
See, it's blazing. And this is the standard way to start the day or end the evening in Russia. What once seemed very far away is becoming more and more realistic.
The year 2025. This is a record year for the number of drone strikes on the territory of the Russian Federation. In addition to drones, missiles are also starting to come in. These include small-sized missiles like the Peklo type, as well as, for example, the long-range Neptune, the extended Neptune D. There are also Flamingo missiles.
Chechnya has also come under the crosshairs of UAVs. Local residents report that as a result of the attack, the FSB building was damaged and a unit base was also shelled. Ahmad in Gudermes.
This is a certain element, a power element, which plays its role and occupies its place in the Russian hierarchy. And not the last one either. Destruction, humiliation, devastation. This is very important specifically for this direction. We will find each and every one of them. And this is a very important message so that every Kadyrovite who came to Ukraine understands that one way or another they will be found. We find Russian generals, eliminate them, blow them up. An ordinary Kadyrovite will just be smeared against the wall by another drone. And we'll even send him a package from Nova Poshta with a piece of salo.
Let us remind you that on the night of November 25th, Ukraine attacked the Borev aircraft repair plant in Taganrog, which is capable of modernizing and servicing Tu-95 MS aircraft. As a result, the occupiers lost the ability to further operate this aircraft. The strike destroyed 2 aircraft, the A-60 and the A-100LL.
Truly unique aircraft were destroyed in Taganrog, ones that Russia will never be able to produce again. Moreover, these planes were originally built back in the Soviet Union era. The A-60 was a long-term project intended to be a flying laser weapon. It was supposed to be a kind of threat to the American space program, but it was never completed. It never reached any kind of operational state. The destruction of this aircraft essentially puts an end to the entire laser aviation program of the Russian Federation. As of today, with the destruction of the A-100LL aircraft, Russia simply loses the ability to continue these testing phases. To develop anything new, although to be honest, the A-100, the new generation after the A-50, was already technically and technologically outdated compared to its Western counterparts.
This is just a small part of where lately UAVs have been flying in, striking military and critical infrastructure targets on Russian territory. Of course, after every attack, the Russian Ministry of Defense reports that most of the UAVs were shot down. But for some reason, after the phrase "all targets have been eliminated," dozens of videos showing fires appear in Russian Telegram channels. The reason is obvious: poor air defense performance.
Russia has always had problems with air defense. The Soviet Union never had its airspace fully covered, not even when the Soviet Union had far more capabilities in this area. As a direct and significant result, Russia inherited a truly vast territory, a very large and expansive airspace with many inherent blind spots and considerable gaps, through which, of course, various strike assets can readily fly. Indeed.
The automated control systems have already brought a blackout closer in the southern part of Russia, so Putin's capital may also soon plunge into complete darkness. A powerful explosion occurred on the Druzhba oil pipeline in Russia, which still supplies Europe with oil, fueling the Kremlin's military financial capabilities. Russia's oil and gas budget revenues have collapsed to a critical level. How does this blow affect the Kremlin's economy, and what does it threaten for the regime? All the sensational details are coming up next.
Once again, the Druzhba oil pipeline has exploded on Russian territory. Sources in the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence reported this to several Ukrainian media outlets. The attack on the oil pipeline took place near the settlement of Kazinskie Veselki on the Taganrog-Lipetsk section of the pipeline.
According to the reliable sources, powerful explosives with remote-controlled detonation and also highly flammable additional mixtures were specifically used to truly achieve greater intense burning.
The Druzhba oil pipeline is used by Russia to transport oil to countries in Eastern and Central Europe. This is far from the first strike on the Druzhba pipeline. Back on August 13th, Hungary accused Ukraine of a drone attack on a distribution station of the Druzhba oil pipeline in the Bryansk region. At that time, at the facility involved in supplying Russia's military-industrial complex, a fire broke out.
President Zelensky openly threatened Hungary. He admitted that they are striking the Druzhba pipeline because we do not support their accession to the EU. This shows that the Hungarians made the right decision.
On August 18th, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó stated that Ukraine had allegedly attacked the oil pipeline again. Oil supplies to Hungary were only resumed a day later. And already on August 22nd, Hungary announced a third Ukrainian attack on the Druzhba pipeline, as a result of which oil supplies from Russia were once again halted.
Strikes on the Russian oil industry are the most effective way to force Russia into real negotiations and to end the war. At the same time, Ukrainians are involved in this, specifically Ukrainian Special Services, particularly the SBU, as well as the drone forces, which are effectively striking elements of Russia's oil infrastructure. In particular, this includes the Druzhba oil pipeline and oil transfer terminals.
Additionally, as Bloomberg reports, in November, Ukraine carried out a record number of strikes on Russian oil refineries. In the USSR, within a month, Russian oil refineries were hit at least 14 times. More than ever before. In addition, 4 attacks on oil loading infrastructure in Black Sea ports were recorded, which led to shipment delays in Novorossiysk. According to analysts, due to damage to facilities, Russia's average daily oil refining dropped to about 5 million barrels. And it could fall even further. But that's not all. Do you remember the recent SBU special operation to blow up 2 tankers from Russia's Shadow Fleet? At that time, the upgraded maritime drones successfully targeted the vessels. The Sea Babies, which can travel long distances and are equipped with reinforced warheads. The vessels were empty and heading to the port of Novorossiysk for loading at the time of the attack. Both tankers suffered critical damage after being hit by the drones and have effectively been taken out of service, which will undoubtedly deal a significant blow to the transportation of Russian oil.
In fact, all vessels involved in Russia's Shadow Fleet are operating outside the law. Second point, the vessels engaged in Russia's Shadow Fleet directly ensure the inflow of funds into the Russian budget from the sale of sanctioned oil. These funds are also allocated to the war against Ukraine. Thus, every vessel in the Shadow Fleet is involved in the war against Ukraine, thereby losing its civilian status. This can be compared to Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil refineries. At first glance, an oil refinery seems like a civilian facility, but in reality it is entirely and completely engaged in the war effort. The same goes for the tankers. Ukraine is expanding the range of targets it will attack in the near future in the Black Sea, and this list includes tankers from the Russian Shadow Fleet.
The media reports that after the large-scale U.S. sanctions against Russian oil were imposed in October, Russian oil companies Lukoil and Rosneft, as well as their 34 subsidiaries, came under sanctions from Washington and London amid Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine. Now it's becoming increasingly difficult to find buyers for the oil, and more oil is accumulating on tankers from its Shadow Fleet at sea.
Of course, the sanctions also play a certain role, but I think that the strikes on the oil infrastructure are the key factor. This is the most important element in achieving the final result. At the same time, it should be understood that all of this is very painful for Russia. The main part of the income that Russia receives comes specifically from oil revenues. The more oil they sell, the more money they have. The less they sell, the less money they have. Moreover, it's important to note that under sanctions, Russia is often forced to sell oil at a significant discount, that is, with large price reductions, which again also affects the decrease in their revenues. And they need a huge amount of money to continue waging the war.
Tankers are essentially being used as floating storage facilities, which has caused their number at sea to increase sharply. According to Bloomberg, the volume of oil in tankers at sea has grown by 1/5 over the past 3 months. It is also reported that about 180 million barrels of oil have accumulated. The main reason is the imposition of sanctions, which complicate the sale of Rosneft's oil and led to longer transportation and waiting times at the destination ports. The accumulation of oil in tankers could lead to a drop in prices and hit Russia's revenues, despite the projected increase in energy export revenues in the 2025 budget. According to Reuters, Russia's oil and gas revenues plummeted by 1/3 in November. According to the agency, oil and gas revenues in the Russian budget dropped by about 35% and amounted to around 520 billion rubles. This is one of the lowest figures in recent months.
In fact, I think that if effective strikes on the Russian oil industry had started not now, but back in 2022, then perhaps the situation everywhere would be different now. From the front line to Russia's willingness to enter into any agreements. But in any case, the fact that the strikes are continuing now, the fact that the Russian oil industry is being restricted, this will definitely have an effect. The question is when and again how Russia will counteract this, but I think no one really doubts that there will be an effect. And
by the way, are you over there in Russia not getting too relaxed? The Russian oil network as the main source of income for the aggressor state and its funding. The military-industrial complex will keep exploding and burning until Russia stops its attempts.
To aggressively launch a full-scale attack against the sovereign nation of Ukraine.